creating a internet-based rover using Trimble R12s, R12Is with a wireless device like a MiFi and Trimble Access for the data collector software. So what we're going to take a look at is instead of using a radio to communicate the corrections between your RTK-based rover, we're going to look at using something like YouCORS, which is an online service of NTRIP casters that will allow you to upload your correction data from your RTK base to the internet and then connect your rover, your RTK rover, to the internet and get those corrections. So this cuts the radio out of your RTK based rover setup, and that allows you to have greater range as long as you have internet connection. You do have to have some sort of cellular data there, or some sort of Wi-Fi setup to be able to get the data from the base to the internet, and then you have to have a cell phone or Wi-Fi at the rover to be able to get those corrections. So as long as you have that internet connection, it'll allow you to get a lot longer range. So the first thing you need to do is set up your YouCORS account. So if you open any browser and go to YouCORS.com, and I'm not affiliated with YouCORS in any way, just to let you know, somebody told me about it a couple years ago. I played around with, found it super easy to set up, found it very reliable to use, and so I've been showing people how to use it ever since. And this is January 2023. They did just update their service this year, so I had a video that I had done with their previous service, but they've updated the way the dashboard looks, added more servers, and it now runs even more robustly than it did. So this video is the 2023 version of YouCORS. But anyway, if you go to YouCORS.com, scroll down to the bottom, there's information about it on the website. Here's the plans. You do have to pay for this. It's not very much though. If you pay ahead, like pay for a year, you save 30%. But basically, you got a basic plan at $7 a month. That allows you to set up one base station. Pro gives you 3 base stations, $17 a month, and Enterprise gives you 10 for $35. So just pick the plan you need. Go ahead and get that set up. And then once you've got that set up, we can log in. I already have an account, so I'll go ahead and log in and show you how to get it set up. So once you log in, you'll see the dashboard here for YouCORS. And over on the left, you've got different servers that are available around the world. So just pick your location and pick a server that's closest to you. I'm in the southeastern US, so I'm going to choose Atlanta. And once I have that chosen, I just need to set up my mount point, which is going to be my base station that's sending data to the internet, and then the client, which is the rover, which is getting that information from the internet. So first thing we'll do is set up our mount point. I'll click add mount point, and it will auto-generate a mount point there. If you want to rename it, you could use what they generate. If you want to rename it to something with your name for your mount point, your username and password, just click on the mount point there, left click on it, and choose the edit button up at the top. Now what I like to do is name my mount points, basically the type of receiver it is and the last 4 of the serial number. That way if I'm running multiple base rover setups out there, I know which one is which. You can just name it whatever you want, whatever makes sense to you. So I'm going to call this, and I'm running an R12 at the base, R12I at the rover. So I'll just call this R12 underscore, the last 4 digits are 1236. And for the username, I'm just going to use 1236 and the password 1236. You can use something a lot more secure if you want to, but again, this is just something super easy, last 4 digits of the serial number there. So the NTRIP version, leave that on any. Do not check the box for encrypt password, and then click update there. And that'll go ahead and change your mount point name there. And then all you have to do is add a client. So again, we got the base set up. Now we're going to set up the hit add client. And again, it's going to auto-generate a client. So I can click the client there and go to the edit top there. So again, I can create a new username and a new password. For the username, you could call it the receiver in the last 4, or you could just do the last 4 like we did earlier. I'm going to call this R12I underscore 0280. And then the password I'll just use is 0280. So again, type of receiver, last 4. I'm going to leave the NTRIP on any and not check the box for encrypt password. So click update. And that's all there is to it. Now I got my mount point set up, and I've got my client set up. If I click up here on the alpha instance, that's my first instance on the Atlanta server, that's going to give me all the login information I need to set up my data collector. So I'll click alpha, and then here is my receiver configuration helper. So by choosing the base and the rover, or my mount point and my client, it's going to show me all the login information I need. I need to know this host IP address, the port, the mount point, the username, and the password. So for NTRIP V1, NTRIP V2, and for the rover NTRIP V2, there's all the information you need. So write this down, print the screen, do a screen snap, whatever you need to do, but this is the information that we're going to need to set up your data collector. All right, so we're done in YouCORS. That's all set up. The next thing would be setting up the Trimble Access software. Okay, so I got Trimble Access opened up. I've already created a job. I've already got my receivers paired up via Bluetooth and set up as the base and the rover. So I'm not going to cover all that in this video. This is just about getting your GNSS contact connection set up and survey style to set up. You can see our other videos on how to Bluetooth a receiver and how to create a job as well. But we're going to get everything set up to run that internet. So we'll go to the menu at the top left, click settings, and then survey styles, and set up a survey style for this internet-based rover. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it YouCORS, internet-based rover, iBase, whatever you want there. I'm going to click new down at the bottom, and I'm going to just call this YouCORS. It is going to be a GNSS survey type or style type. Click enter and accept. The first thing I'm going to do is go to the base. I'm going to set the base up first. That's going to be our mount point information. Then I'll come back and get the rover. And you could do the rover first. I just want to go ahead and cover the base first, and then we'll get to the rover there. So I'll go to the base options. I am doing RTK, and since I'm using Trimble receivers and I'm using R12Is, or R12 at the base, R12I at the rover, I want to use CMRX. That's going to allow me to use all the satellites there. So RTK, CMRX, the antenna type, again, I'm on the base and I'm running an R12 there. So I'll scroll up, find R12 internal, click that, measure to the bottom of the quick release. If you're setting it on a fixed height tripod, go ahead and set that up. If you're using a different height tripod every time, then leave that blank so you have to enter it in. All right. Don't need to put the serial number in there. Come on down to the GNSS tracking and just check everything, because you want to be able to use all the signals, even if you're not getting them, depending on where you are in the world. You want them all turned on there. That way you don't have to worry about missing anything, right? So once I have that set up for my base options, I'll click accept. The next thing I'm going to do is go to my base data link and get that set up using that. Go to base data link, switch my radio, or switch my type from radio to internet connection. And it's going to prompt for a GNSS contact, which I don't have set up right now, so we'll set that up. So I'll hit the black arrow, click new down at the bottom, give this contact a name, and I'm just going to call it like the last 4 digits of the receiver serial number. And we're not using controller internet at the base. We're actually going to use the receiver internet and Wi-Fi. And what we'll do is we'll leave a MiFi jetpack at the base station instead of a radio, and that will allow the base station to connect to the Wi-Fi and send those corrections up to YouCORS. So we'll choose receiver, internet, Wi-Fi, click accept, and then go to the corrections up at the top. This is where we need that information from YouCORS. All right, we've got our entry, username, password, mount point, IP address, and port. And if I bring this over from my other screen, that's the information that we have over here under base, right? We've got our IP address, our port, our mount point, our username, and our password. So I'll move that side again. So that's why I said write that down or take a screen snap, or if you got 2 screens like this, move it over there, whatever you need, but just have that information handy. We are going to use NTRIP, so that's going to be set to yes. The username from YouCORS was 1236, and the password was 1236. The mount point is R12 underscore 1236. IP address for Atlanta, it's going to be different depending on what server you have, but the one for Atlanta is 173.230.131.216. Okay, and you can just double check that from the information earlier, and the IP port's always going to be 2101. So just get all that information in there correctly based off of that receiver configuration helper in YouCORS, and you'll have your GNSS contact set up for your base. So I'll go ahead and enter that and store it. Accept that. And there's my internet connection, GNSS contact for my base data link. Hit accept there. Now, if you're running multiple bases off the same one, so you have multiple different base setups there, you could prompt for GNSS contact, and when you start the survey, you don't have to do a different survey style for each one. You can this is just going to prompt you which base you want to connect to, and that's why I like using those the last four of the serial number. Just makes it easier there if I'm running multiple bases. So anyway, I'm going to leave it unchecked because we just have one right now. Click accept. So I've got my base information set up. Now I'll go to my Rover options, do an RTK using CMRX because that's what the base is broadcasting. I am using an R12i at the Rover. If you were doing something different, just do the drop down and choose the correct antenna. So I'm using bottom of quick release. Fixed height pole would be 2 meters. Don't need the serial number. Set your tilt information the way you want it, or if you're not using R12i, you won't have tilt information there. Elevation mask is going to be the default 10, PDOP at 6, and then just go ahead and check all those satellite options at the bottom, right? Because we did it at the base, we want it at the Rover. We want to be able to get everything we can at the base end. So I'll click accept. So that's got my Rover options set up. Now I got to do that Rover data link using the information from YouCORS to make it work with our internet base. So I'll go to my Rover data link, switch it to an internet connection. Again, it's going to prompt me for a GNSS contact, just like I created one for the base. I'll create one for the Rover there. So new down at the bottom. And I'm going to call this one YouCORS Rover. I am using the controller internet on this because I'm going to use the Wi-Fi connection on my data collector, whether it's TSC5, TSC7, TDC600, whichever one. You could have a SIM card in it. You could have be hooking up to the Wi-Fi on your cell phone or to a MiFi device, but you do need some sort of internet at the controller. But we will use controller internet here, and then go to corrections. And the big thing you need to do for YouCORS is just make sure that you check the box here for use NTRIP version 1.0. If you leave this unchecked, even if you have all this set up correctly, it won't connect, okay? And now this is as of January 24th, 2023. That may change over time, but I know right now, if you don't check this box, it won't work. So make sure you check the use NTRIP 1.0. Then enter in that the Rover information, username, password, IP address, port. IP address and port will be the same as the base, but make sure that you're entering in your username and password for your Rover. So here, my username was R12I underscore 0280. And my password was just 0280. IP address for Atlanta there is 173.230.131.216. And your IP port is going to be 2101. Do not check the box for send user identity information. That's all you need there. Just be sure to check your receiver configuration helper on YouCORS. Get that username, that password, the IP address, the port, and be sure to check the box for use NTRIP version 1.0. Click enter and store and accept that. Now you can accept this. And then you could go ahead and set up any of your other settings you want in your survey style. I'm not going to cover that. We have other videos on how to set up survey styles for R12Is or R12s, whatever you're using. But right now, I just wanted to focus on this to get it set up using YouCORS correctly. So I'll click Store and then the Escape button down at the bottom left. Now I've got YouCORS set up online. I've got a survey style and GNSS contact set up at Access. I'm ready to go ahead and get the base and the rover set up outside and connect up to those. So we have the equipment set up there in the field and have a MiFi set up with the base station to act as its Wi-Fi internet source. So to get things started, we'll tap on the menu at the top left, then tap measure, and then we'll choose that YouCORS survey style that we created earlier. First thing we'll do is start the base receiver. So tap start base receiver, and the software is going to connect up to the GPS receiver. And if it's the first time that you're starting this off, you'll have to scan for your Wi-Fi device and connect up. After you've connected once, if you use the same MiFi or the same phone or whatever over and over again, it'll automatically connect. If it doesn't find that, it'll ask you to scan again. But the first time you use it, you will have to, or you will see this receiver Wi-Fi configuration screen, and you'll have to hit the scan button down here at the bottom. And this is going to scan for wireless networks and find our Verizon MiFi 7250 there. So we'll choose it and then tell it to accept. So it's going to go ahead and hook up and do all that automatically. You don't have to hit connect or anything. And once it gets on the internet and the receiver gets an IP address, then it'll take us to the base setup stage where we can tell it what point we're on. All right, so once it gets online, we can go ahead and put the point name in. For this one, I've just got it set up outside the office, so I'll do a here position. I'll just go to key in, type in point number 1, hit here, and go ahead and store that. So if you had a known point to set up on, just key in your point number like you normally would do for any base rover survey, and I'll just click the start button down here. And so now the base has been started. It is sending corrections via our MiFi to YouCORS. Now we can go ahead and start the rover survey up. So I will go to the menu, click measure, YouCORS, and we'll measure points there. So now it's going to flip over and connect up to our R12i. Go ahead and turn the IMU off. Oops. So there is our there's our base station right there, our R12 1236, and somebody else is also working off of the Atlanta server. So anybody that has a CMRX set up on that server, you're going to see. So you have to know which base station is yours. Sometimes you won't see any other one, sometimes you will. But there's another guy working off of Atlanta with CMRX. So we're going to choose our R12 1236, tap accept. And if you're using an R12i, you'll need to face the LED panel.
Waiting for information from the base.
And wiggle the receiver around a little bit to get the IMU going. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the IMU because I'm not standing next to it right now. But we'll give it just a second for it to get corrections, and it should go ahead and get fixed for us. All right, so there it goes. It's getting good corrections now. We've got the green check mark. We're all set. So now we can go ahead and do our normal base rover survey like we always would. And when we're done, we'll need to go back to measure and end the GNSS survey at the rover. I'm going to leave the rover on for right now, so I'll say no to that. And then we'll also need to go back and turn the base off. Now, this is important to go ahead and turn the base off properly because that's going to end our communication with YouCORS and make it easier to start up next time. So to shut down the base, we'll go back to the base station, go back to measure, choose YouCORS, and tell it to end the GNSS base survey. And so the software is going to flip over to the base, connect up via Bluetooth, and allow us to shut that down. Again, this is important to do because if you shut it down here from the controller, it will make it easier to start back up next time. So again, I'm not going to power down the receiver. I'm going to say no because I want to start it back up again and show you what it's going to look like the second time you use it after you've already connected up to your Wi-Fi source there. So let's say we were coming back later on to set up on the same point, or we're going to a different job, whatever, but we're going to set it up again after we've already connected to our MiFi one time. We just won't have to scan again. So again, we'll set it up on a control point. When we're ready to start the survey, tap the menu, measure, choose YouCORS, and we'll tell it we're going to start the base receiver. Now I already have point number 1 in there, and I'm still set up on that point, so I can type in 1, hit enter, and start. And now you'll see it starting the survey, and it went straight to base started. It didn't really have to do anything. Now, sometimes you'll see it'll pop up. If you've turned the receiver off and turn it back on, it will pop up and say that it's configuring the Wi-Fi, it's connected to the internet, but you won't have to do that scan deal again. The receiver was still connected to the internet because we hadn't turned it off and we hadn't turned the hotspot off. But again, the first time you use it, you'll have to hit the scan button. After that, you'll just be able to auto start it. The base will start up. And then I can just flip over to my receiver, YouCORS measure points. Let's flip over to my Rover, and it should connect up automatically if it has a internet source there as well. So now it's connected to the receiver. We'll see it's building the source list. There's my R12 1236. So yeah, I'm the only data source showing up right now, and I'll just click accept. Just make sure that if there are other base stations showing up in the list that you do choose your base station. And once again, I'll turn off the IMU because I had that turned on in my survey style. And as soon as we start getting corrections from the base, it'll pop up there and let us know that we're initialized. There we go. So we've got the green check there. We've got acceptable horizontal and vertical, and we could start measuring again. And again, to shut it down, same thing, measure and GNSS survey at the Rover. This time I will power down the receiver, and then we'll drive back over to the base station or walk back over, go to measure, YouCORS, survey, let it connect up via Bluetooth, and we'll power that off. So once it connects up to the receiver there, we'll choose yes this time to power everything down. And now we can break our equipment down, turn off our MiFi, and we're ready to go for the next survey.